Well, see, that's the misnomer.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about integration. Integration, all it was about was constitutional rights.
Mm. Mm.
You know, the
That's a good point.
Our Constitution says equal rights for everybody.
What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go.
What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now. And I got a unique story today, man. You know, just randomly, I was outside checking my mail, and my neighbor was outside. This is my man, McSwine. And if you all live in Knoxville, Tennessee, you've heard the name before. Then you used to own an insurance agency, right?
With State Farm, yes.
With State Farm. Mm-hmm. So if you've been in Knoxville, you've probably seen or heard the name McSwine. But we were just outside talking, and for some odd reason, we were talking about his hometown and talking about his history and talking about him growing up and being raised in Greenwood, Mississippi. Interesting. And he finished high school in 1964. So you start putting the timeline together. You think about history and civil rights, and you think about Mississippi, you think about Greenwood, Mississippi, and you think about the time frame, 1964. He just started talking about his experience, and I was just like, you know what? His journey would be interesting for the brothers to hear. So, Mac, thank you for taking time to hang out with me, man.
Well, you're more than welcome. And my nickname is Mac, and that's what I've always gone by. But my given a birth name is Edward McSwine.
I never knew that. It's funny, like everybody, you know, Edward McSwine, but everybody knows you as Mac.
That's true. And when I started working for State Farm, I told my then supervisor, you know, he knew my name was Edward. I said, I prefer that you call me Mac. And at that time, I was a claims representative in the State Farm Fire and Casualty. So when I later on, after 8 years or 10 years as a claims rep, I got the opportunity to be a State Farm agent. So my moniker then was to keep my nickname and tell everybody and my clients to call me Mac. So that's why.
And that stuck. And it's funny, I've lived here across the street from Edward. I lived across the street from Mac for almost 13 years now, and I never knew your real name was Edward. So, wow, you live and you learn something.
Always.
And speaking of living and learning, you know, we were actually having a conversation out by the mailbox, and it started from you talking about, you know, you and your wife just went on the trip, you know, celebrating her birthday. We won't say the age, but she celebrated her birthday, and you all went to Tunica, Mississippi, and I asked how far was that from your hometown, and you mentioned, you know, about 90 miles,
Correct.
Which is Greenwood, Mississippi. And then from there, this spawned a conversation about life growing up in Greenwood, Mississippi. Take us back there, man.
Well, born and raised in Greenwood, Mississippi. I was born in 1946 and attended the local schools and graduated from the then Broad Street High School in Greenwood, Mississippi. And of course, it was a segregated school when I graduated. And one of the defining things that happened and that I can reflect on now is I can remember throughout high school we would get used books for learning. And my junior year, which was in 1963, several students, the seniors and the juniors, we wanted to know, well, why are we still getting these used books?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we would get books coming over from the white school, of course. There would be writing, kids' names would be in the books, of course. And so, to my knowledge, most of the books that we got in the segregated school were used books from the high school, which was Greenwood High, where the white kids attended. And so we had the juniors and seniors had a mini boycott. And we went to our principal. We wanted to know, well, why wouldn't we get it? Why don't we have new books in school? So that was part of our defiance and my defiance and my relationship or getting involved in civil disobedience as Dr. King was spreading, throughout the 60s. So that was the defining moment and my awareness into nonviolence or civil disobedience back in the day.
And you also mentioned when we were standing at the mailbox that at one point SNCC, which was the Students for Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC actually had their headquarters in Greenwood, Mississippi at one point to do the voter registration drive, correct?
Correct. I don't know the exact year that SNCC established headquarters in Greenwood. Probably was between 1962 and 1965, because I graduated from high school in 1964. And I can remember all the volunteers coming to Greenwood, and a lot of them would meet at the local pool room or pharmacy store or the barber shop, and they would tell about their adventures or their encounters going out on the plantations and trying to register our seniors, registered voters. At that time, you had to pass a test as part of the process of getting to vote.
So like
Greenwood.
a written test, or was it like a verbal test, or what was it? What kind of test was it?
At some points, it was both.
Wow.
Written and verbal. But it was up to the local registrar to devise
the questions. So they could make up whatever they wanted to make up.
Anything.
Wow. And that was just for black folks. Like other folks didn't have to take a test.
They didn't.
Wow.
Not the whites.
Wow.
And some of the blacks, they would allow to vote, or they would let them pass. Some of them, a lot of time, were ministers. Others would, if a plantation owner wanted his worker or something to vote, all they would have to do is go down to the registration office.
Because then the plantation owner would probably have him vote for whoever the plantation owner wanted.
Right.
Wow.
And he would, it was just a matter of their word. So that's what was going on, and clearly a violation of the Constitution. But
but who's supposed to enforce it?
Yeah, the state had passed a law that said in order to vote in the local state elections, you had to pass a test. And that was one of the ways of keeping, of course, black people from voting, getting the right to vote.
Now, when you said you finished high school in '64, did you register to vote before you left? And you left to go to college in '64, correct? You went to Knoxville College?
Correct.
Okay. And so you left, did you register to vote before you left for college?
No, I didn't. I don't know if the age, I don't think the age at that time to vote was 18. I think it was 21.
Okay.
As it was to get married in Greenwood at the time, I think you you had to be 21.
You had to be 21 to get married? Now, hold on.
Well, I think.
I was about to say, most people are probably thinking Mississippi back in the day, they're getting married at like 13 and 14. That's what you're thinking. But you said legally, you think the marriage age was 21, so you think the potential voting age, we can look.
Your parents have to sign for you. Because I know when I got married, I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was 20, but her father had to sign for her.
Okay, gotcha.
So we got married in 1968.
Oh, and y'all got married in Mississippi?
In Greenwood, Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I don't know what was illegal.
Okay. But you didn't register?
But your folks, no, I
Okay.
didn't register. But like I'm saying, I don't think I could petition to vote at 18
Okay.
in 1964.
Okay.
I don't think I could.
And so talk about like some of the things like, during that time frame that you can recall and remember about Greenwood. So like 64, and you left. So I guess prior to that, talk about some of the experiences or the things that you can kind of remember, maybe during that time frame.
Well, I can remember specifically the civil rights, the meetings that SNCC would have throughout the community.
Did you go to some of those?
Of course we did.
Oh, wow.
And the only place that we could meet, of course, was the black churches.
Mm.
And my father, who was a minister at the time, his church was made available, and maybe 3 or 4 others. But it was a very stressful thing on the community and the ministers and the people of those congregations, because if the authorities, which was the mayors and the police departments and so forth, and leaders of the community, if you had your church or your members were taken down to the voter registration office to vote, they would post your name in the newspaper.
Really?
And so if they post your name in the newspaper, of course, your boss, who was mostly white, and at that time, only jobs available for the folks, black people for the most part, were teachers, preachers, maids,
domestic workers,
and
basically.
domestic workers, and folks in restaurants.
In the farms, plantations, and stuff.
Right. So you didn't want your name in the paper because your boss would see it and easily get fired.
So hold on. So if you went down to register, your name automatically got put in the paper as a newly registered
or participant.
Really?
Yes.
So whether you got, now what if you didn't get, like if they denied you the ability to vote, then is your name still in the paper?
Yeah, your
name
is still.
So you just went,
Yeah.
That's interesting. So basically what they did was they had like a kind of like a watch out, so to speak, to let everybody know who the black folks are that are going down, who are trying to vote. Right. So it's not even the fact of you voting. They're putting on blast the fact that you are trying to vote. And so therefore you are now on a quote unquote watch list.
That's right. You made the list, and people had to work. So that was another deterrent from going to register to vote.
That's fascinating. So
you didn't want your name on there if you were, a domestic.
Yeah.
Or
because you don't want your boss to know.
There you go. Or a lot of people went to pick or chop cotton from the city. They would go on a daily basis, so they didn't want of course, the plantation owners to know that they were going to register to vote. It was quite intimidating.
And I think about that, and then it's just like, at that point, what type of courage does it take to even want to go? Because I think you think about like your livelihood. Like your livelihood is connected to what you do, or the safety of your family. Let the Ku Klux Klan or somebody else find out that you're one of them that's down there trying to shake things up. You're putting yourself and your family's livelihood in jeopardy. So it really, your story here adds another layer to the level of courage that your generation had to take, or the courage that you all put into practice to really make some of this stuff happen. Like that, I mean, to know that you're going to be put on blast, to know that your name's going to be in the paper, that everybody can see that, you know, me, Mike D, went down and tried to register, whether I got the chance or not, or got the, you know, the approval or not, I went down and tried. Everybody knows that.
And so getting back to SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, those were young people, high schoolers, and young adults who started that movement in Greenwood, just like you see what's going on in Florida today. So those were people like me at 16 and 17 and 18, and a whole lot of other females and young males. We were the ones out there marching, you know, and trying to integrate the restaurants, the transportation, and the schools, because everything was segregated. Back in that day, of course, during the time, if you wanted to ride the Greyhound bus, there were two separate entrances, one for the whites and one for the blacks. And the same way about the public fountains.
There's one for blacks, one for white.
That's right.
I got a question. This is, it makes, go ahead.
That's what they had on it.
They colored and...
On our fountain, it said colored. And if you were caught, whether it was the law or just an average citizen, they would tell you, boy, get away from that fountain, or you're not allowed. And if you stayed there and did it, you had to worry about that person calling the police, and the police would arrest you and charge you
for using the wrong fountain.
There you go.
Now, I got a question. Hearing you say that, and it makes me think back to the whole notion of, you know, wanting to integrate and wanting to, you know, kind of make things, you know, have different opportunities. Do you think, and this is just your perspective on it, do you think the whole notion of integration would have even been a desire and an interest if everything was solid for black people off the jump? Like, you know, you mentioned like y'all had used books and had the water. You probably didn't have as good a water fountain as the next one, and they made y'all sit in the back of this. If, you know, you had new books and new schools and everything was properly funded and everything was up to par in the black community, do you think that we would even have a strong desire to want to go and integrate?
Well, see, that's the misnomer. We talk about integration. Integration, all it was about was constitutional rights. You know,
that's a good point.
Our Constitution says equal rights for everybody, not based on race.
That you hit on a really good point there.
And the newspaper and the pundits talking about integration. We just wanted
equal rights.
Equal rights.
You know,
very, very simple. Same today.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though, and this is, I'm glad you pointed this out, because even I catch myself sometimes thinking about, like, you know, why is it that you want to just go and, you know, like, that water is not better over there, or that grass is not greener over there. And that's a point that a lot of people make, that think that the civil rights movement, and like I said, I have to catch myself, because when I step back and think about it, sometimes you think that this whole notion of integration was like, well, we just want to be over there with y'all because y'all are better than us. You're making it, or you exemplify the point that it was not about us trying to be like y'all. It was just the fact that under this particular law, we should have the same rights. So we just want to figure out a way to have the same rights and the same opportunities, not the fact that we want to go over there and necessarily have your stuff. We just want equal rights or equal protection under the law.
The same thing today. It's about constitutional rights. But in the southern states and in other states of the United States, they practiced what was called Jim Crow law. It was a violation of the Constitution.
But they allowed the states' rights to supersede Federal rights. Wow.
in the southern states.
Mm.
And that was it's really a misnomer.
Mm.
You know, those laws to require only, that's the way it was administered, black people to have to register to vote.
Mm. Mm.
You know, all you had to be is just be a citizen.
According to the Constitution.
There you go.
But with the state law, they implement, or even the local law, they implemented these tests and all these different things that were held up to the jurisdiction of whoever, whatever place you are located currently.
Voter discrimination, that's all it was.
Mm.
And that's some of the stuff that's going on today.
Mm.
You see.
That is wild. And so
that's the environment that I grew up in. And I can remember even after I left, for example, when the schools were integrated, which I think was around 1970 in my hometown. And when we were trying to integrate the schools between 1966 and 1970, I can remember my first cousin was one of the ones to, as an elementary student, integrate the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the first.
Wow.
To file. Her father, my uncle, testing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get phone calls.
Really?
And threatening phone calls from people, white people or Klansmen or whatever, stating and telling whomever answered the phone, nigga, you better not let your daughter. They thought it was
your daughter, but it was
thought it was my father's daughter,
His
but it was
niece.
my cousin. That's my niece. You better not let her go to that school.
Mm.
She better not. If she integrates that school, we're gonna bomb you. All kinds of telephone messages.
Did y'all become numb to stuff like that because of the time period, or did it still bother you continuously?
Well, you just ignored it, and you just continued to do what you wanted to do. Because you were fighting for your civil rights.
That's right.
And you had come to a point when, as a student nonviolent coordinating committee came, and King's message, of nonviolence, civil disobedience, and SNCC's entry into voter registration. It was just once you, got turned on to that philosophy. It was just a part of you. You said enough is enough in terms of being denied your civil rights and your constitutional rights. And so, for me, we tried to, it just became a part of your being, and came to Knoxville College.
And you got to Knoxville College in '64?
Yeah.
Okay.
Came to Knoxville College and graduated in '68. But we had groups, called the Black Power Group, and so we got involved with the students on campus about the same thing: voter registration, constitutional rights. And in '68, when King started the Poor People's Campaign, after graduation I graduated in May of '68, but
that was a month after King got assassinated. Oh,
but
wow.
they had the Poor People's Campaign going on in Washington D.C.
So they had it. So the Poor People's Campaign actually went on after King was killed.
Right. They had a big celebration, a gathering in D.C. So there was about 10 to 15 students of us from the college, girls and guys. Some graduates and some just students. We went up too, and participated.
So you actually went and participated in the Poor People's Campaign in D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
the month after Dr. King was killed.
That was in May or June of 1968.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that like? So what did you now? Because I remember Dr. King initially with the Poor People's Campaign, the goal was to go and basically set up tent communities in D.C. How did it end up transpiring? When y'all got there.
Well, they did the same. He was just trying to highlight and emphasize, okay, we're getting the right to vote and go into public places in 68 civil rights law.
Mm-hmm.
The Poor People's Campaign was about jobs and training and highlighting, even though we got the right to vote from a national, what about the jobs? You wanted to have the ability for companies to hire you based on your merit, based on your abilities, not restrict you to domestic jobs and other jobs where you couldn't get a decent income to take care of yourself or your family. That's what the Poor People's Campaign was about.
And that's so powerful because, again, this is giving clarity even to myself. I do a lot of reading and watching a lot of documentaries and all that stuff. And the whole notion of mentioning that the Poor People's Campaign was about you being able to progress and grow and take care of yourself and have a rich life based on your merit and not be limited based on limited to domestic work, so to speak. So it's not, because some people think the Poor People's Campaign was about, going and the government's just supposed to pay for us to do everything and for us to not have to work and we just want them to take care of us and to be on the government check or whatever. But you highlighted the true essence of it all. It was about the opportunity. It was about the opportunity of a meritocracy, so to speak, where you allow your merits and your abilities to then open up doors for you, not the fact that we just want y'all to just take care of us.
Right, and equal opportunity. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. You want to be able to get a job and not be limited to certain jobs because of the color of your skin. And, at that time, of course, you had a lot of schools and colleges that wasn't admitting blacks during the 60s. So all of that, we wanted to be able to go to law school at Ole Miss, but not being denied to go to law school at Mississippi State. Same thing about here in Tennessee. We want to be able to go to law school at the University of Tennessee Law School. We shouldn't be restricted to go to Howard Law School or any law school because of our color. And so if you're restricted from going to law schools and other graduate schools because of your color, look what some of your black schools didn't offer some of those majors. So how are you going to get the jobs
if you're not trained in those particular areas?
There you go.
Wow.
So all of it was about equal rights, and if you get your right to vote and you can't get a job,
what's the point? Like, what's the point? You're like, yeah, we can vote and put somebody there, but it ain't going to benefit me. Wow.
So
it's the economics tie-in on the back end.
That's what King wanted. That's where he was moving from the civil rights
to the economics.
That's right.
Honestly, that's, when you read a lot of things, I mean, ultimately for a lot of people, they believe that's the real reason why they had to go ahead and get rid of him. It's because at the end of the day, civil rights, I was watching a video of him, and he was talking about how the whole notion of civil rights is easy because nobody had to give up anything, right? But yet when you start talking about economics, that means somebody got to come off some money. That's what stuff gets testy, so to speak. And that's when the rubber hits the road, and that's when folks are going to be like, I'll give you the civil rights because I ain't got to give up nothing for that. But yet when you start talking about economics, I got to give up something. So, that ain't happening.
Yes, and of course related to that is the pay. If you were black and you were doing the same job as a white,
Mhm.
the white person would automatically be paid back in the day more than you were paid doing the same job.
Mm.
So again, it was about equality
Mhm.
in pay
An opportunity.
and opportunity.
And fellas, I want y'all to really kind of think about this, because once again, a lot of us have this thing misconstrued. A lot of us have the thought process that this was all about we want to do what they're doing. It has nothing to do with that. It was not about quote unquote integration. It was just about equal protection under the law and opportunity, and basically looking at the fact that the Constitution protects all of us, and if we're no longer 3/5 of a man. This is all about us getting the same rights as somebody else. That's what this was about. It was not about integration. It was not about mixing and mingling and all of that stuff. That wasn't what this was about, right? Yes, that's something that a lot of people tend to focus on, but that was not what this was about.
Yeah. The politicians and the press would try to put that in the minds of the citizenry to change the focus of what we were fighting for. Very simple, just like what's going on today. Very simple.
And so, Mac, this is interesting, man, because I think about the journey and things that you went through in Greenwood, Mississippi, and then matriculated to Knoxville College, and you graduated from there, and then you went on a successful business and do your thing, and now you're retired, doing what you want to do on a regular basis. But you also had, you raised some sons, right? And so you're a father. The title of this podcast is Black Fathers Now. How did your experiences impact you as a father?
I think the biggest impact when I became a father, and as my children grew from elementary school to high school and on to college, my single focus was being hands-on father and trying to show them that black kids are not just raised by a single mom, because that's what you hear all the time. And that's what I came out of. My parents were married, I didn't know anything about being raised by a single mom. So I wanted to instill that in my sons in terms of stability and the focus of not only coming from wanting to provide them stability, but part of that stability had to be getting a good education and getting a job that provided me the same economic advantages as any other person, regardless of the color of my skin. You see? So my experience from being raised in a two-parent home, my experience of my parents wanting me to go further than just high school, because, I knew then, and statistics say it now, that those of us who graduate from a technical school or community college or college earn more than just a high school graduate or a dropout. So the only way I could get it is is to follow. My focus was to follow in my father's footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
He was a minister and a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
that's all I knew.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I wanted to do. When I got out of high school, I wanted to own my own business.
In 1964,
Yeah.
you wanted to own your own
I
business.
wanted to own my own business. And I got a reference from that, from not only my father, who owned a funeral store and a bookstore. He owned a funeral home, rather, and a bookstore.
Mm.
But there was also another businessman, black businessman, that was a mentor for me. Was named Dr. Riddick.
Mm-hmm.
He owned the local pharmacy,
Mm.
and he had a sort of a soda fountain
Okay.
in there.
Wow.
And so I would say he didn't have to work. He worked for himself. He didn't have to work for a white man or
Wow.
anybody. So I wanted that. And I thought, well, hey,
Mm-hmm.
my father didn't have to work for a white man or anybody else. He had his own business.
Mm.
So I said, well, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to have my own business and provide a living for me and my family the same way that
Your dad,
my dad and
your mentor.
and my mentor, Dr. Riddick.
Mm.
So I tried to instill that into my sons and to tell them to get a good education and follow their own dreams and so that they could be able to take care of themselves and their family.
Fellas, pay attention to that wisdom. Pay attention to that wisdom. I mean, Greenwood, Mississippi, in the midst of the civil rights struggle and voters registration stuff that was going on. I mean, right down the street from Emmett Till, where he was killed, and not far from the in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where the civil rights the what was that the three civil rights
Workers.
where they were killed, and I mean all of that went on. Matriculated to Knoxville College and HBCU in Knoxville, Tennessee. Finished school, and then after that participated in the Poor People's Campaign, and he graduated from college a month after Dr. King was assassinated. So after that, he went to D.C. to participate in the Poor People's Campaign. You step back, and then he became a father himself. He got married, and and he had his children, but he utilized the impact or utilized the example of his father, who was a minister and a businessman, and his mentor that was a businessman in Greenwood, Mississippi, how they were able to, in the midst of all of this, in the midst of the civil rights struggle, to not be beholden to the same forces that other people were beholden to, because they had their own business. So they kind of had the ability to control their financial destiny and take care of their family well. He utilized that as the inspiration for the raising of his kids, in the sense that education was important. Creating your own destiny, following your dreams, but then putting yourself in a position in which you don't necessarily have to rely on somebody else to take care of you. I mean, fascinating story. And like I said, fellas, this spawned from the conversation just standing out of the mailbox from my neighbor, Mac McSwine. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the fellas, man, to the Black Fathers Now Nation? I just put you on the spot, too. And this is all unrehearsed. This is just spur of the moment conversation, fellas. So, I mean, this is a blessing, man, and this is really an awesome opportunity to learn from somebody who was right in the midst of what was going on, the things that we read about. He's telling us about it because he was there.
The main thing I would say to the black fathers is to stay involved with your children, especially if you have sons. From the beginning to the time they are born to the time you leave this earth, stay involved with your children. If you're going to have them involved in sports or any kinds of activities, take them, stay there till they do their practices, and keep them involved, and you stay involved, and try to teach them to be good citizens. And that's the main thing. Keep them to be good. Try to teach them to be good citizens.
Stay involved and teach them to be good citizens. Mac, I want to thank you for taking time, man, out of your busy retired schedule to to sit down and kind of give us a glimpse into your life, man, and your experience, because I think what you shared here will inspire some of the brothers that are listening to approach life differently, but then also to realize that we have to stand on you all's shoulders. You all did so much. You all sacrificed so much for us to go forward, and we are basically wasting it if we don't go forward and do something with it. So I thank you for everything that you did, and that's impactful and that's powerful, and that's something that I don't take lightly. So thank you so much, man, for taking time to hang out with us today.
You're more than welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the brothers.
That's it. Hey, and fellas, this has been brought to you by blackfamilyapparel.com. Visit blackfamilyapparel.com to grab some awesome apparel that celebrates the nuances of the black family. Visit blackfathersnow.com. Subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, any place you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, leave ratings, share this out with your family and your friends, most definitely. And let's see. I guess that's pretty much it. Hey, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise, and I'll holler at you. Peace.
Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always, always, always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.